The following podcast is an RMG Media production.
Hey, Sid.
Hey, Walker. Happy, I guess, Monday, because this is going to come out on a Monday.
Yep.
What's up?
I mean, not too much. I guess whenever this one comes out, I'll have been fresh from vacation.
And I will have maybe given birth.
Maybe. It's still up in the air.
It's still up in the air. I don't know if this boy wants to come out or if he's just super happy where he is.
I absolutely loved making jokes about how your maternity leave will not start until the day that you give birth. Like Sydney came into the office the other day and asked, like, so when is Sydney, that's our other Sydney, when is she going on maternity leave? And I was like, well, her due date's the 23rd, so she's not going to start maternity leave until like the 27th.
Right. No, I actually think that I'll be from the hospital
Just
emailing you and texting you.
We'll just do a podcast from the hospital.
We could.
We could.
You know, I mean, while I'm having like small contractions,
Yeah,
like maybe before they get too overbearing,
Right.
I don't know. But
so tell me about your business.
then you just hear Nick in the background crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely be working up. That's been the magic question of this whole pregnancy is everyone has asked me that. When are you taking a maternity leave and how long will it be? And my answer to both is I don't know.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's possible for me to take a maternity leave, but that's really just because I don't really want to.
There's so much fun stuff going on.
There's so much fun stuff going on.
We
and
keep having great guests.
Yeah.
Like the person that we're about to introduce y'all to that I think blew our damn minds.
Oh my gosh. We just had one of my favorite, I know we've said this before, but one of our favorite guests on, Becca Gardner. She's the founder and CEO of Alt Distilling and the innovator behind NKD LDY. And that is a non-alcoholic spirits brand. And y'all, I mean, I first tasted the tequila of this brand in February when we had our women's summit. And I was, 6 months pregnant at that point. I don't know how pregnant I was. Probably not. My mouth is wrong. But it was so amazing that I was able to have a cocktail. And this is not a brand just for pregnant women. It was such a plus for me to get to experience that because everyone else it was happy hour and everyone had a beer from Mill Creek and a seltzer. And I was able to have this like beautiful tequila infused tasting cocktail.
It's not like what you think, like, oh, okay, whatever. It literally is a spirit alternative that uses the spirit. So this is a non-alcoholic tequila that's made from tequila. It's insane. It's a process that no other company really uses. She mentions it in the podcast. I can't remember exactly what it's called, some scientific term. Vacuum press or reverse vacuum, something or other like that. But they literally just remove the ethanol, the alcohol from the spirit. So like their whiskey, it still uses the charcoal from the barrels. Like it's all the same thing. It tastes the exact same.
Yeah, like the ingredients.
There's no alcohol.
The ingredients of the tequila that I'm looking at right now, it's distilled water, tequila and other natural and artificial flavors, organic agave syrup, sodium, just like a couple of more things. Like it's very much tequila is an ingredient in this, but the alcohol has been removed.
Yeah.
And so anyone can drink it. And it's something for everyone. And what my thing is with this brand and Becca is she is innovating in a space that doesn't yet exist. And she's doing it from a really purposeful place because she was an alcoholic and she has been on this, sobriety journey and has a really powerful story and just, like I said, she created something from a hard time and is really foraging through and plowing through, creating, again, a space that doesn't exist, which is it's already so challenging to start a product-based business, but to do it in an industry that doesn't exist where you're just having to break down doors that aren't even really there, but that are because they're not.
And as a woman in a male-dominated space.
Yes.
And you're going up against alcohol, the biggest companies in the world, where they don't want another competitor or for people to not drink their product. It's just absolutely incredible, and she's done it in the best way. And we talk all about just her process, the team behind NKD LDY, her story, She works with her sister, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
It ties like together with our story a little bit, which I love. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Yeah. So her whole thing is she was inspired to create a brand that reignites the social aspect of drinking without the pressure or induced courage of alcohol, which is really such a huge part of their brand and mission, is just making it okay to not drink and it's not a big deal. Like, why do we have to make it a big deal? And one of my favorite parts of the episode is how she describes the bottles and the branding by being something that blends in and stands out. Right. She wants her product to blend in that you see it among other tequilas and you're not like, oh, I don't want that one because it doesn't have alcohol. Right. It fits perfectly in, but it stands out because of what it is.
If you're on a journey of, like, I just don't want to drink right now. I don't want to do that. I'm just trying to cut back or whatever. There's no pressure when you get this. Like, the whole idea is, let me get a margarita, but I want it naked. It comes from a bottle that looks like a tequila bottle. No one really thinks anything of it. There's just no alcohol in it. Yeah. There's no pressure to be like, can I get this mocktail or this faux margarita? Virgin. Yeah, no, it's nothing like that. It's just, I just don't want any alcohol, but I want a margarita that tastes like a margarita. Yeah. Or, whatever it is.
So with that, please help us welcome Becca Gardner, founder and CEO of Alt Distilling and innovator behind Naked Lady, to the Renaissance Podcast. Welcome to the Renaissance Podcast, a podcast for Renaissance women
and men
who want to create a modern-day renaissance in their life and business.
We interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and share their unique stories.
Are you ready to create your renaissance?
Welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back. We're so excited because we have someone in studio today that I have just adored for like the last, 7-8 months, and had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year at the Renaissance Women's Summit. Mm-hmm. Becca Gardner is here, the founder of Alt Distilling and Naked Lady.
Such a cool product.
Thank you.
We have it sitting here for those on video. It is, you brought your tequila alternative.
I did, yes.
And we had this at the summit.
Yes. I think we had a cocktail with the tequila and with our gin. So
and it was I was 4 months pregnant at that point. I think 5 months pregnant, and it was like the best thing ever because you had it during our happy hour, and I was able to drink something that like was so good, and it is so good, and I don't like how do you make this actually taste like tequila, because it really does.
It's from tequila.
It is. And it has been a long process to figure out how to make these products, at least in a way that hit the bar that we set for them, which was largely my bar because I don't drink alcohol. So I think, for me, it wasn't that we could make a product, it didn't taste great, and then I would just go have the real thing. I really wanted to be able to recreate the cocktail experiences that I had once known and loved. And we started in a lab setting where we were going to just do it I don't want to say the easy way, but an easier way, where we just made kind of flavors and formulations, and we couldn't really get it to a place that we felt customers would really get excited about. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board and decided that we would actually start with real spirits. So we use this process called vacuum distillation, which means that we distill using pressure, not temperature. So we distill at room temperature to remove the ethanol from the spirits themselves, the gin, tequila, the whiskey. And that's our base. So we actually use the flavors that are created during the fermentation process to create that flavor profile that customers kind of know and expect with real spirits. And then we add other natural flavors to kind of complement them.
Yeah, that cocktail was so good. I don't know what you mixed in. It was just delicious.
Thank you.
And I cannot wait until I can literally go to my liquor store and just grab this.
Yeah.
And that's on the docket. That's coming.
It is. I think for these products to be successful and really to go after the white space, they need to be in all the places that people would expect to be able to purchase or enjoy cocktails. Or the ingredients to make them. And so for us, it's not about just being a D2C brand where you might see an Instagram ad. It's really about being at your local liquor store, being at your favorite bar, so that these can kind of integrate into the fabric of drinking culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think, and then we need to get into you, but do you think in the stores it will go under a category that says non-alcoholic, or will it just sit on the shelf?
So it's interesting. A lot of that, I thought more of that would be up to me, and it's not. So,
dang it.
The things you learn. But, I think it's very state by state and market by market. So we're seeing a lot of non-alc products actually be categorized with beer. So in some liquor stores, you'll see some of the non-alc alternatives with the beer. Some markets and retailers within them will actually have their non-alc section. It might be with the mixers. I think I dream of a day where you can be going down the aisle with the tequila and there is a section that has the tequila alternatives.
Totally.
But I think we're definitely a few years away from that. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, especially for like pregnant people, just because I go down the beer aisle and I'm trying to find non-alcoholic beer because I actually love non-alcoholic beer.
That's
same.
But this is crazy, but like the Budweiser, it's called like 050 or something. It's non-alcoholic, and I've drank it through my whole pregnancy, and I love it because it just tastes like a beer.
It tastes like a beer.
It's the whole experience.
And that's the whole point of it, right? It's like if you're going to switch, you want to have, and that's why I think a lot of people stay drinking is because they want to hold something when they're at the bar, they're with their friends, they're outside. And with this, if you could make a cocktail with something that tastes just like tequila, but it's got no alcohol in it,
100%.
The perfect process.
I think it needs to be innocuous because we still have a culture that really encourages people to drink, and for whatever reason they wouldn't drink, and I think there's a lot of discomfort in making that decision not to drink. And so I think it needs to be easy. It needs to be something that can be under the radar for folks that aren't wanting to have a conversation about why they're making that decision. And I think, I love that you mentioned beer because I think the non-alc beer category is really aspirational for us because I think over the last 5 or 6 years, we've really seen that come into, the light. Like so many folks that would never have considered drinking non-alc are drinking, the non-alc Budweisers or Heinekens or Athletic Brewing. So,
well, and then I like the branding aspect of can I get a margarita, make it naked?
Yeah.
That's what I like the most. It's then it becomes like a fun thing. Just make it naked.
Yeah, and I think we realized that there were maybe some words that weren't supporting the growth of the category and that they were actually dissuasive. And I've mentioned this in past conversations with folks, but the word virgin or even mocktail, there's something about it that feels like it's subpar.
Yeah.
And so I think, this can very easily be seen as just kind of a health and wellness product.
Right.
And I think for us, we wanted to make it easy, but we also wanted to have a bit of an edge so that folks didn't feel like they were saying that they were a goody two shoes or being, only wellness focused. Because I think that can impact the environment, the social environment that you're in and the people you're around.
Wow.
So
that's so brilliant. Okay, we have so many
so many questions.
pockets to get into, but to start, because I just want to know, we read your bio in the intro, and people kind of are prompted on you just a little bit, but you are one of my favorite types of entrepreneurs because you created a product based on kind of a hardship that you had in your life and a difficult season that you had. And then you had this incredible experience, I want to say, in London that led you to go so hard and make this thing happen, which you did, which is so inspiring.
Thank you. And I worked in an environment where drinking was just part of it. So I was working in strategy consulting for 10 years. And so there were constantly client dinners and team dinners. And I was really living in hotels and on airplanes. And I drank all the time, but so did everyone around me. And so I never really gave my consumption much thought until I had kind of a sequence of hard things happen in my life. And I realized that my response to that was to numb out. So I wasn't at the bar dancing on tables, being the life of the party and being fun. I was drinking at home alone because I didn't want to feel those emotions. And I think when I really confronted that, it scared me. And I didn't want alcohol to be on my shelf of coping mechanisms if I was going to use it in that way. And so, removing alcohol from my toolkit was one of the best decisions I made. But I shortly thereafter became really annoyed with my experience because, I felt alienated from so many of the experiences that I had once loved. I, love going out. I love dancing. I love going to concerts. And I always just ended up feeling like a weirdo in those experiences. And I felt like everybody was always so curious as to why I was making this alternative decision. And, So I was kind of living with that discomfort. And when I spent some time in London interviewing for a new job opportunity, it was the first time that I really felt like this decision that I made for myself wasn't one that had to come along with so many compromises, because there really was so much inclusion in the hospitality scene in the UK. It seemed like every bar, every restaurant had non-alc options. And so I could just participate. People didn't seem to think it was a weird choice. If anything, it was kind of in vogue because it was really emerging at that time. And I left London not taking the job opportunity and deciding to actually pursue doing something about this.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you did that.
Thank you.
When was that? Like, what year?
So that was the beginning of 2019,
Okay.
early 2019. And the summer of 2019, I decided to start pursuing this. And, I'd been living kind of annoyed with my experience for about a year. And I was so excited. I think there was always part of me that wanted to do something of my own. I just didn't know what that meant. And I had a couple little false starts. I'd have ideas, I'd work on business plans, but I don't think my heart was really ever in it. And I realized that I'm just the type of entrepreneur that I have to be incredibly passionate about what I'm doing to be able to kind of harness that energy and that, enthusiasm and just that drive to kind of push something across the finish line.
I always think that it's like people want to be entrepreneurs, but then they spend so much time thinking of what the idea could be. And it's like, that's never the best way to go about it.
I agree. I think I had to be hit on the head with it.
Slapped in the face.
It slapped in the face. Yeah. And it actually, I joke with my family because it was actually some of my closest friends in my family that were like, can you please do something about this because you're getting annoying. It was the only thing I was talking about. Yeah. I was ordering all the products. I was doing all this research, and everyone around me was like, you are spending so much time on what you're calling your new hobby that it's starting to look like a job. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Maybe this is how someone finds, what that spark is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to talk about kind of your, geographical trajectory, because you grew up in central Kentucky.
Yes.
On a 1,000-acre farm.
Yes.
What the heck? Your dad's an entrepreneur, right? Your dad has...
No, my dad's a doctor.
Okay.
But my parents, and I'll say our parents, my sister Jenny works with me as well.
Hi, Jenny.
And she's in the room right now. So, our parents decided to open a country inn in the middle of nowhere. And
I love it.
So we all moved out there and did that. And we were far enough away from schools that homeschooling was kind of a better option. And so we had a pretty non-traditional childhood. And it's so funny. We were talking about this on the drive here, my sister and I. And, when we decided to sell the farm, she was very, very not happy with that. She could have lived in the middle of nowhere in nature forever. I was in that phase where I was watching Sex and the City, and I kind of felt like a prisoner. I was like, don't want to be homeschooled, don't want to be out in nature, want to be in New York City. I like what I'm seeing in Sex and the City. And so after college, I went to Denison in Ohio for college, and then after college, I moved to New York. And I was there almost 12 years before I decided to move back into my parents' basement to build this company.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about like really getting into what you're being drawn into. I mean,
yeah.
And so with New York, I mean, do you feel like New York had something to do with kind of that hard season that you were in, like the city itself? I've heard people say that, but I've also heard people say if you can make it 10 years, you can be a lifer in New York.
Yeah. I think I probably stayed beyond, my expiration date because of how much it meant to me to be able to have gotten there and to have that job and to have that apartment. And, it felt like it was really hard to accept that I wasn't happy there anymore. And I think I'd felt that way for some time. But yeah, I think I'm just one of those people that if I decide to do something, I'm going to give it 100% and be really open-minded to what that looks like. So I think when I wanted to create an authentic spirits company and I grew up along the Bourbon Trail, I could only wrestle with that idea for so long before I realized that it made much more sense to build this company in Kentucky than Bushwick.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, if I hadn't originally been from Kentucky, I mean, it became a little bit hard to deny. And I think it ended up working out very well because, shortly thereafter the pandemic came and so many other people ended up moving back in with their parents. So
it wasn't probably that weird.
It wasn't. Okay. It was very weird at first and then much less weird.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being the right move. I didn't know that I would also fall back in love with Kentucky and decide to stay. But here we are.
Here you are.
Well, I like how you've tied that back into your branding of like the Kentucky roots play such a pivotal role in this,
They do. And I think that this product, creating this company, has been very much a coming home experience for me. I think getting to a place in my life where I didn't feel like I needed alcohol to feel less anxious, to feel like I fit in, making peace with a place that I didn't really feel like I identified with, being Kentucky and coming back and finding so many things to love about it as an adult and to find a lot of meaning in actually being there. And I don't know. I feel like working on this company, building this, has changed me in so many ways that I'm so grateful for. I think it's helped me be so much more open-minded and not have to be, I was on a career trajectory where every milestone was set for me, and it was just about how effectively I got there. And every day is different now.
Yeah.
Every week is different.
Yeah.
The goals are constantly shifting.
Yeah.
And it's a little unusual compared to what I had experienced before, but it's so much more exciting, so much more fulfilling.
Can we talk a little bit about your sobriety experience?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious about that because it's like you have just this incredible story, and you've put everything into this incredible brand. And by the time you left New York, were you 100% sober? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was. I got sober in New York, and I got sober in the program. And I have to say, it was the day that I said, my name is Becca and I'm alcoholic. I was in a space with 200 other people, and it was the first time that I'd really admitted that to myself or anyone else. And to get an applause and also be surrounded by all these really cool, beautiful, amazing people, I was like, wow, like this decision doesn't have to be so scary. It doesn't have to be so isolating. And instead, it's quite the opposite of that. I think I found so many new friendships and relationships of people who had similar struggles, that had dealt with shame in a similar capacity, that were drinkers like me, that actually have been drinking because of their anxiety and feeling socially awkward, as opposed to necessarily being like the party girl. And I think to see people that I felt like I had more in common with was really such a huge part of my healing process early on. And so, I created that foundation of sobriety that first year. And and then I moved back. And it's kind of very mean to like get sober and then decide to start a company based off of it. But I always joke that there's a lot of accountability in there too.
Yeah, for real. Like you're like, okay, I'm really committing to this.
That's
I was
about
like,
as
I'm going to make
committing
sure
as you can.
everyone knows I'm sober. Like sometimes they're like, maybe don't share with everybody right away. I'm like, I want to build a national brand. So here,
Take it nationwide.
Exactly.
And, that's it.
Exactly.
Well, okay. So then, you were already well into sobriety, like when the London event happened, and then moved back to Kentucky. Okay. So walk us through starting this thing. Like I've heard you say so many times in interviews, you're like, I'm a first-time entrepreneur. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, there's one thing being a first-time entrepreneur. There's another thing being starting a beverage company in a space that's not been tapped into yet.
Right.
You're innovating in a space that really doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So that's really hard.
With like a country that the stigma is just you got to drink. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do joke that had I known how crazy it was, like what I was setting out to do, I might have like changed some things about my business strategy. But, it's a hard time to start a consumer products company with the pandemic and supply chains. It's a little bit harder to create something that's never been made before, I realized. Just a little. Then, putting it on a slide and telling people you think you can do it. But, it has been such an experience of trial and error. And as someone who has historically been a bit of a perfectionist, a bit more OCD, very achievement-oriented, very good at hitting whatever benchmark was set for me by my former employer, like to get so comfortable with screwing up literally all the time, was such a new experience for me. And to get comfortable with not knowing the answers to most things. Like I wasn't even sure when I started where to start. Like, what part of the process was where I would dip my toe in? And was it finding someone from the traditional industry that had a lot of experience about how actual spirits are made and sold? Or is it finding someone from kind of like an alternative industry? Or do I even need a person at all and just need to know the right questions to ask? And I think that throughout this entire experience, I have just always had to assume that I don't actually really know what I'm talking about a lot of the time or doing, and I have to be really open to feedback, to input. But, as I've moved along, what I have discovered is that I have learned so much. I've gotten to the point where I know the people to go to for certain types of inputs in the business. I know when I can trust my own opinion or gut on something because I've gotten to know the industry very well and how our product is different than the traditional industry and how that creates a set of advantages for us. But I mean, I don't want to pretend like this has been a big confidence boosting experience. I think if anything, it has been the discovery of my own humility, working through my ego, getting much more comfortable with not being great at certain things, but realizing like I don't have to be the best at something to continue being the best at pushing the ball forward. So
you just answered like the question I wanted to ask you, which was what has been like your biggest lesson in entrepreneurship so far? Like what have you learned about yourself, really? But it sounds like
and
it's humbled you.
Also, it's so funny because there's been a lot of changes in the business lately, and I'm still figuring out what it means to be an entrepreneur and what that looks like. And I have discovered that it is not a linear process. And success doesn't mean that everything goes right. Success means that I am in a position to take every disruption, every challenge as information, not be reactive, instead kind of pull the, advisors and mentors I trust to make the best decision I can. But even then, sometimes it might not work.
Yeah.
And I think it's really been about getting a lot more comfortable with this just being a very chaotic and kind of all over the place process. But it's like, as long as we're kind of tracking in that right direction, this is very much a success.
Totally. Because it's like we were saying, there's this really, I don't know anyone, especially a woman, who's done this before. So it's like that you're walking on, an unpaved path, like always.
Yeah, 100. It's so funny. I think people always compare starting something like this to my first baby, having a baby. And I think I imagine that my child would be like clean cut with a polo and like a nice little button up and like little matching shorts. And instead I feel like it's like one of those children on TikTok that dress themselves in the morning,
Yes.
And are like very much doing what they want. Yeah. And my job is to like keep it safe.
Right.
And, make sure that any issues that arise that are too significant are ones that we sit down and talk about,
Well, and this year for you has been so pivotal. Like you officially took the product to market this year, right?
Yes. And
you've built a team.
Yes.
And you have a board.
I do. Yeah.
So that's a lot of big things going on.
It is. And my chairman is actually based here in Nashville, and he's my mentor and one of just the most wonderful humans I've ever met. He's also a non-drinker. And, he has played such a huge role in me figuring out what it means to have a board, also what it means to be a CEO. Because sometimes, you find yourself in a new role and are like, wait, nobody ever told me exactly what my job is. And I find that I'm always learning about like new aspects of what my responsibilities are, and from them and my lawyers. So I think, it's like, no, you actually do have the authority to make this decision. And that's always fun to learn. But, this winter was very much about pushing the boulder across the finish line in terms of having a physical product. And I have to tell you, a first production run for, a new beverage is just like not for the faint of heart. And I had to be very hands-on with it. I sourced all of our materials from a lot of international suppliers as well. I worked with my sister on creating the copy that you see on labels, and the codes to scan at checkout, and even the nutritional labels. And it's like every single piece of it was something that we had to make, source, and to do that within a world where there are just insane supply chain disruptions everywhere. Yeah. So we always needed a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. And so we bottled at the very end of February. And to hold this, it was just the craziest experience, because I think up until that point, there was this part of me that wasn't quite sure if it would ever work out. I think I thought I was going to build this company in 6 months, which is crazy now that I know what it actually means to build a consumer products company. But it was so exciting. But then the company radically has shifted, because it suddenly went from all of our focus being on how do we get a bottle, how do we get a product that's exciting, how do we make sure it tastes good, to how do we sell it, which is also very important to do as an entrepreneur. And so, we're going through this process now of figuring out what is the team we need to really take this to the market. Who is our customer? I think I have a lot of ideas on who our customer is, and we've done a lot of different events that have given us more insight. But until we're meeting them and having conversations with them in the market, we don't actually know them as intimately as we will to really grow.
Right.
And so this is very much a period of lots of tests.
Yeah.
Everything's
a theory right now.
Everything's a theory, and we're testing it. And I think it's really exciting when we prove ourselves wrong, which we do more often than prove ourselves right. And I think before we got started, we were chatting about how, this is still such a new category.
Yeah.
And I think because I spent every waking moment of my life on this for the last 2.5 years, I forgot that not everyone knows about non-alc spirits.
Yeah.
You're really? You don't know about this? I'm having to explain it to you?
Right. And for us, it's okay, this is why maybe you should choose our product over this product or this product. And people are like, I've not heard of those products either. Wait, what is this category? And so I think that a lot of education has certainly been done by brands like Seedlip, which I think is a product that a lot of people know about now, and the same with a product called Ritual. But that's not most people.
I was going to say, never heard of it.
Yeah, and I think there was a month or two that was kind of surprising to us, but it's important for us to know, because what it means is that even though I have a lot of industry contacts, I can't just put this on the shelf in any market and expect people to go to the grocery store or liquor store and even know what they're looking at. It needs to really be accompanied by a lot of grassroots marketing and kind of disruptive, strategies around how we're going to be communicating with our customers. That sales process requires a lot of support. And that's okay, because that's actually the fun part of the business, thinking about how we can be weird and get people to notice us and then buy it.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because you came out of the gate being disruptive, because your branding is edgy, like you said earlier. It's off the cuff. It makes you kind of tilt your head and go, what is this? And I think you're really nailing it in that realm. But how did you know from the get-go that was the route you wanted to go with creating this brand and the products?
Yeah, I think I came out of the womb disruptive. I think I'm always having to check myself, I'll say, because I do have a tendency to want to make everything from scratch. It's very hard for me to get excited about just buying into the way things are done. I always want to know if there might be a better or more effective way. And sometimes that's a great thing, and sometimes it's like, Becca, it's being done that way because that works. And so this has very much been a process of that. But I think in terms of the branding and the design, for me, it was how can this bottle, how can the branding on it be one where very simply folks will know that any drinking choice they make will be accommodated at that space. So I wanted to have a logo with a marker that could be easily spotted from across the bar, but I also wanted it to blend in. Yeah. I didn't want it to be poured from the bottle where everyone was like, oh, isn't that cute? Why are you being healthy? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was, we had a strong desire to not make it too feminine, because I think a lot of the products that have entered this category have only been really going after women. Yeah. And the reality is that if you look at the data, and I think a lot of this has to do with non-alc beer, there are actually more men that are cutting back on alcohol right now, which is kind of something I still don't even know if I believe it, but that's what Nielsen and everyone says. So I'm I guess it's true. But I think it's because the branding has made the products that men might more likely consume, such as beer, at the golf course or whatever, they've made it so that there's not stigma surrounding them.
Yeah.
And I think that we would also start to see more people making whatever choice was best for them for whatever reason at the bar, if that choice was also less stigmatized. So I think we wanted it to be cool, but something that didn't draw attention to folks. And it almost could be kind of like a secret between you and the bartender.
I love that. And you're really hitting Nashville right now. Like, I heard you say that you're going into bars and like everyone is just loving the concept and wanting it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think that we're also just coming to appreciate like how different each market is. Like, I feel like Louisville, where we really created this brand, is such a it's a very welcoming hospitality market where by the end of, having a cocktail, you're like hugging the bartender and your best friends. And Nashville's a little hipper, a little edgier. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that there are a lot of bartenders and folks in the hospitality community that have really achieved like status through kind of, being the name and the face of, these specific areas. And so it's a little bit more formal here, but we have found that the best way for us to get folks excited about it is to just show up, order a non-alc cocktail, ask if they'll make it with our product. I'm always like, it looks like I'm doing something illegal, but I'm not because it doesn't have alcohol. But, I pull out the booze out of my purse. And it is very rare that experience doesn't bring someone on board. We don't have a big footprint, but I think we are the best in the category, even if the category is still small. And so what we're really excited to do in Nashville this summer is to show up at different events. So we'll be at Porter Flea next week. We're going to be doing a small influencer dinner with Porter Flea this evening. And we're just wanting to show up at even weddings in Nashville. We're working with some different wedding planners, and it's about how do we show folks how this product can be used in these different social environments, and alongside that, finding 5 or 10 bars that can really be advocates for us, so that when people want to go try it, they can go have a nice cocktail. Because I think that's the entry point. It's not going to be, I'm not good at making cocktails. I'll just say that. Like, that is not the part of the company that I am good at. I'm actually really bad at that. And if I was to order our product online and make something at home, it just wouldn't be the same experience as going to like the Pearl Diver or Fox Bar and having someone who really knows how to make a cocktail make it for you. It's the same with the spirit. It's like I never was whipping up any fancy whiskey drinks at home. They were bad,
I love it. I love that you're open about that. Well, yeah, because you go to a bar and, the whole experience of it isn't so much always getting the buzz and getting drunk. It's the fancy, beautiful glass they put it.
Yes. Great taste to it.
And the look and the little things they put in it, the little lemon or the little flower. Or you had a drink with a flower in it recently.
I did.
Walker loves a girly drink.
They're great. Hey.
I respect a man
This
that
is
loves
an
a girly
episode
drink.
that we need to break stigmas. All right.
That's what we're going to title it, Breaking Stigmas with Becca.
What's wrong with that?
I love it. No, my fiance is the same way. He always manages to order the most flamboyant beverage on the menu. It's like a sixth sense. But I love that you mentioned like flowers and the glasses, because I think for us, artistry is a big part of our brand and the experience. So it's like, okay, guys, like we might not have the ethanol, but how can this still be beautiful? And I think for us, it actually raises the bar in terms of what we think we need to achieve with presentation, with flavor, with story, because alcohol is what gives spirits its inherent value to a lot of people. And I think if we're removing that, it's kind of like, what are we going to put in that place? And I think that's an exceptional experience in all the other ways we can deliver on that.
Yeah, it's an experience, like you said. That's what,
Yes.
A lot of people think of as drinking, and people that are really cocktail people, it's more about the art of it than it really is anything else. Well, I want to talk about your team, because I know that I've heard you say like that's kind of like new for you, managing a team, having people, and like, again, that's one of our fun challenges we get to have is
working with a sibling.
Working with a sibling.
Yeah, that's horrible. No, she's wonderful.
She's awesome. So what does your team look like now? And kind of who, I'm sure everyone's wearing a lot of hats, but what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, my sister might say too many hats, but we're a small team, and Jenny is really working as kind of my right hand. So she is helping me, fill gaps and plug holes. and really is kind of a quarterback player across everything that we're doing. But we actually have a business model that I think I have seen at other startups that works very well for us, which is more project-based. We're not trying to fool ourselves in that we're a massive corporation.
Right.
But there's a lot of really incredible projects that we're doing, like things focusing on engaging bartenders or engaging new types of consumers or activations in different markets. And so we have kind of a stable of freelancers in a sense, primarily from the hospitality community. So most of the individuals that work for us, there are 3 and soon to be 4 of them that are part-time bartenders and really well-respected bartenders in Kentucky that love being involved in an alternative brand and product, but also want to make some additional money outside of the hours and tips that they're working in bars. And so what we have found, and this probably isn't a surprise to many people, is that a lot of bartenders are also something else. And very often, bartending isn't their main thing. They are also an artist in some capacity, whether it is a photographer, or they do copywriting, or they do web design.
Right.
And so what we have found is that working with the hospitality community, the bartending community, which is really a community that we aim to serve and empower through offering different freelance opportunities, has been exactly what we need in this stage of the business. And oftentimes they're probably the best person to be doing these things. Like if we're thinking about how to communicate to them, how to sell to them, for my sister and I to come up with a concept on a slide in our office versus just going and asking them how they would appreciate, being introduced to something like this, they generally have better ideas than we do. So small team, we have 4 to 5 part-time folks. Jenny is my only other full-time employee. And we also work with a lot of contractors right now. Oh. And I think we'll be shifting into a slightly more kind of mature model in the next year or so. But there's also this part of me where it's like, I'm very confident in this business, but I also want to make sure that I'm only bringing people on in a capacity that we can support.
Totally.
Is that how you decided to pull Jenny in, or how did that form? How did this start?
Well, I mean, it was a similar model. Like, I think Jenny was planning to move back to Kentucky. She had been living out near Boulder for, 6 or 7 years. And she is a really great designer. And so I started getting her support on some projects in the fall, a few hours here and there. And I think we were both shocked at how well we worked together because
we relate.
Yeah,
you're like, wow, this is really exciting, but new. And when she and her husband moved back to Kentucky over the holidays this past year, it just kind of made sense to both of us, because I think we were able to grow into that place through working together in more of a freelance capacity. And so I think that has been the model. It's interesting. We have one gentleman who's just such an incredibly talented guy that's working with us on a variety of different projects. And his hope is that this grows into a full-time opportunity in the fall.
Love it.
But I think that when it works for someone to work in more of this freelance capacity, it's a really great way for us to get to know each other, because I think it's a two-way street, because working at an early stage startup is like not for the, faint of heart.
It is not.
And so it's like, at least we're getting the things done. We're able to compensate them fairly, and make sure, coming on full time is something that, is supportive of everyone. And so I think as long as we can continue using this model, we will. There will be, a day when we need more people and this doesn't work, but I love it right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a great place to be. I love working with Sydney. Being a sibling, it's...
Surprised he's saying that. 'Cause
yeah,
we got a knockdown drag out yesterday.
But I think that's the part that, it works with a sibling. It's like Sydney and I can sit here and be just so mean to each other, which sounds toxic. But then we're also like, all right, well, we got dinner with mom, so...
let's just
whatever.
Put work aside.
You could be really honest, and I think that... I have found a lot of value in working with someone that can call me out of my bullshit and who I actually will listen to, because I'm like, she has a lot to base this on.
Yeah.
Right.
She's known me my whole life.
Yeah.
And she just knows.
She knows what I'm trying to do here.
She knows what I'm trying to do. Yeah. She knows when I'm bullshitting. She,
somehow makes you more mad, but then you're also like, all right.
Right, because you feel so seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
what
your ego.
What's the age? Who's older?
I'm 4 years older.
Okay.
Yeah. And
5 years younger than you.
yeah, I think, yeah, and it's so funny. I think, yeah, we're still surprised sometimes, but I think it's just worked so well.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, there has been the emotional support in, you know, her working with me that I've really valued. I think I didn't know I needed it, but since having it, I think it's been just such a tremendous asset, because it's tough. You know, there are days when I'm like, I have no business doing this.
Yeah.
And, you know, to have someone there that knows you, understands you, can help you understand when maybe you need to take a break and step back for a minute, has really made a big difference.
Yeah, I always said when I started the business that I would never work with family. Like it was like the blanket.
I took a class in business school that was like the thesis statement. So
Don't work with anyone you're related to.
Right. And I was like, and here we are.
Yep.
You know.
But when it works, and I don't suggest it to everyone, but it's like you will just know it's kind of a gut thing. And you're a gut person.
Oh yeah.
So
and yeah, when I don't listen to it, I regret it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, you just know. And I think there are certainly, I wouldn't work with everyone in my family, but you know, it's great working with my sister.
yes. Well, and you have that trust, which is, I think, the
Yeah.
most important thing. You know, they have your best interest at heart,
Exactly.
which with a business partner that you're not related to, it just can sometimes, I don't know. I could never have a business partner that like wasn't Walker. Like, I don't know. It's just, sorry, but
It's tough.
They
It's
would
tough.
quit or I would fire them. That's just how it would go.
I feel you. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Well, I've heard you talk on imposter syndrome. And I want to talk about that because we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show, a lot of creatives, successful people, and it's something that we've just been talking about a lot.
Yeah, and I think even outside of just entrepreneurship, I think even people in the early
general.
stage startups, like even people on our team deal with it as well. Of like, why are we? Is this real?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
and I deal with it every single day. So I want to know what your experience has been with it. Like when you started feeling it, did you start feeling it? I mean, I'm sure you felt it in your strategy and consulting gig because you were killing it. Weren't you making like they were charging $800 an hour?
Yeah,
for
I mean,
your,
and I had a lot of success in my last career. I think it might have been one of the reasons I stayed so long.
yeah, probably.
You know, it's like kind of like when you're in school and you get like the stars on your chart and you're like, okay,
I guess I'm supposed to be here
gonna
forever.
Keep doing my homework.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting because I do think my career helped me because I was a generalist. So I would go into industries and work in functions that I hadn't before. And my job was really to spend a month learning that client, that industry, their problems well enough to help them kind of navigate different opportunities or changes that they might want to make to their business model. And I think that, you know, the spirits industry is a very male-dominated industry in every facet of it, and, you know, production and sales, especially in the boardrooms. And I mean, I was 100% aware that I had never started a company and that I never worked in this industry. And it honestly, in terms of kind of, I think the thing that helped me through that imposter syndrome, because I felt very insecure about a lot of things, was just time. And I think it was seeing that I had made many great decisions and also seeing that oftentimes the advice that I had received from folks that were veterans of the industry or multi-time entrepreneurs in maybe a different category or space, the advice they had given me oftentimes was not effective, or I oftentimes was glad I didn't take it. And, you know, that helped me understand that just because somebody stands there and confidently tells you what to do doesn't necessarily mean that they have a better idea.
Right.
And I think that developing the industry knowledge, having kind of now a little over 2 years of experience with this, has really helped me navigate that imposter syndrome. But I also think that, like, I've had imposter syndrome my entire life, you know, and I think that a lot of people, I don't think I'm unique in that experience where I've just never really felt like I fit in, always kind of felt like I needed to prove myself to be welcome in different spaces. And I think while there are certainly kind of negative implications of that, I think it's also one of the things that's made me more effective. Like, I've never come into a space or tried something new and assumed that I knew the best way to do it. And for me, this whole experience has really been searching for the people whose opinions I trust, whose experiences I value, to help me formulate my own. And so I think that imposter syndrome, that feeling of being an imposter, is also, another way to describe humility.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's always necessarily a bad thing, because I see people step into new spaces that act as though, they were meant to be there from the beginning and they know exactly how to do everything. And those people usually fail.
Right.
We know those people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, I think if imposter syndrome goes on too long, it can become toxic for you. But I think that there are parts of it that I have appreciated and I think have been a strategic advantage for me.
Well, and I think you said it earlier when you describe, success is not linear. And as an entrepreneur, you find success most of the time when you fail at something. Like, I think that's a hard thing to realize, but like, if something goes wrong, that is a win in a sense.
Yes.
And you have to realize that, and then that helps eliminate some imposter syndrome as well.
100%. And if I think about what imposter means, it's like, I am in many ways an imposter. And in some ways, a product like mine is a threat. Like, I want to propose cultural changes. I want to propose different ways of selling things.
Right.
And that has an impact on a lot of the folks that are the more traditional stewards of these spaces and industry dynamics and the ways that the sales channels work. So I think that, like, no, I don't fit in, but I think that's what makes our company great.
Yeah.
Is that we're trying to show that there's a different way to do things.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Wow. So many nuggets here. So what is kind of next for you guys? I know you're in Nashville this week, which is so exciting, and next week. So that's amazing. Do you have a place here? Or do you, where do you guys stay do you go back and forth?
Someday I'll have a place here. If you ever saw this company. No, I'm just kidding.
The Naked Lady Lair.
The Naked Lady Lair. No, we, so we're just here. We just stayed last night. But we're going to be in Nashville a lot more this summer. I think it is such a great market for us. The hospitality scene here is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We could actually hit kind of our sales forecast just like selling a lot of product in Nashville.
In one little corner of Nashville, I
with
feel like.
The entertainment industry and the whole bachelorette industry. I mean, it's absolutely, it's
and then the
insane.
Partnership opportunities.
And the partnership opportunities. Like, there's so many chefs based in New York or LA that have their satellite locations here, and that's really exciting for us. But in terms of what's next, we are, I don't want to say we're really trying to have fun right now, but that's kind of what we're trying to do. Like, I think that the team, myself included, have worked so hard to get to this point where we have a product, we have support from investors. And I think that the summer is going to be our opportunity to meet as many people as possible, to participate in as many events as possible, meet as many bartenders as possible, and really just try to spread the word through having fun and including others in that. And so, I think marketing is really kind of priority number one for the summer for, the reasons I've said, where, this is new to so many folks. And the aha moments come not from seeing the copy on our website or the picture on our Instagram, but from people being at an event where they see us and they get to experience it for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how I first experienced it and absolutely fell in love with it. So I think that makes the most sense. And
it's like you fall in love with the product and then you really dive into the branding and you're like, oh, this is it. Like, this makes so much sense now, and it ties everything together beautifully.
And I think, I will say in terms of products, we are working on a ready-to-drink concept. But again, I mean, you guys know, you're in the entrepreneurial world, it's timelines are just timelines. They are not reality. So I think that, next year is probably when we'll be releasing these ready-to-drink cocktails. But, as someone who admittedly is not much of a, bartender herself, I mean, I love the ready-to-drink cocktails. And I think to be able to experience our spirits in a format that didn't require a mixer or a shaker and the garnishes and the, would be something I certainly would love. And I anticipate that others would too. So.
Okay. So we've got the tequila, we've got a gin, and we've got a whiskey.
Yes.
I love it. And I know people are and I want to put in the show notes, like where can we, and when, I know timeline.
Yeah.
Where and when can we get our hands on this?
So now you can order it on our website, which is drinknakedlady, NKD LDY.com. And I will give you guys a discount code to share with listeners.
That'd be great.
And we are at 10, 15 places in Louisville. You can also buy us retail there. But in terms of Nashville, what I will say is that we are going to be really focusing on Nashville next month.
Nice.
So if any of your listeners have favorite bars or restaurants, we're actually kind of crowdsourcing the spots that we want to be at, because we want to know where people want to see non-alc options. Because I think that when we have conversations with folks, we really realize that the product sells itself. So I think for us, it's about fit. Like, where would people like to see these things on the menu? And so if anybody, I really mean it, like if anybody wants to, they can add us on Instagram, which is NKD LDY. But if you drop into our DMs, let us know your favorite spot. We'll add it to the list of places that we speak to next month.
I'm going to blow your DMs
Yeah,
up.
blow me
I
up.
have so
please,
many.
please. And it's so
many.
fun. And like, so we'll be coming back probably once a week, once every other week now for the next 2 months. Just having meetings with different places, really feeling out the Nashville market. Because after that, we'll be focusing on Los Angeles. And I think that, Nashville's a great stepping stone from Louisville to LA, because there's a lot of differences between Louisville and Los Angeles.
Who would have thought that?
I know, right?
They're like the same.
Well, it's so funny because I was in LA. I have some investors out there. One of our labs is out there. And, I took 2 6-packs and I stopped by some of like the hottest spots in Los Angeles, just also schlepping my bag as sketchy as possible. And I didn't get a single no at these huge places. And it was so fascinating because in Louisville, I will spend 30 minutes trying to convince or explain to someone why this is actually a valid category, because the market is just not as mature in terms of these types of analogs for spirits. But in LA, they're like, oh gosh, no, we get it. We have like 2 others on the shelf. How's yours different? Yeah. And it's just a completely different type of conversation. And I have found that Nashville is somewhere in the middle, where we do meet more folks that do know that this is a thing. They've been seeing it or hearing it, but they don't, they're not aware of the complete competitive set, which a lot of bartenders in LA are. So it's stepping stones.
Well, I think you're doing it right with the porter flea kind of market. I think everything over in East is 100% up your alley. It's like there's so much education there, I feel like, on this. And I follow a lot of influencers that are always talking about the sober curious movement that really happened like post-pandemic, it seems.
Yeah.
Is that are you having to educate on that, or are you seeing that is just really kind of taking off? Or
I think that, the sober curious movement is the result of a couple things. I think one is actually the number of celebrities and folks that are in the spotlight that started to open up and become much more transparent about their decision not to drink. And I think that, we live in a society and culture where that makes a difference.
Yeah, it does.
And then I think that the other piece is that at the beginning of the pandemic, people were drinking a lot. Like if you look at the statistics, it was like
Tiger King and tequila.
Gosh, and
a good combo.
I mean, exactly. And then there was this point where people were like, wow, this isn't lasting 2 months. I feel like I might have a little bit of a problem or need to have a different kind of solution. And I think, you saw a lot of new hobbies emerge out of the pandemic. I mean, while I started an Etsy jewelry company also while I was, I just had time on my hands in the basement. And I think that, there became the sober curious movement, a lot of people that were big fans of mocktails and, got really interested and involved in it as almost like hobbyists. And I think we're now at this point where it's exciting because a lot of people learned about this category and I don't think they otherwise would have. But it's kind of like, okay, now that we can hang again, now that we can socialize, and this isn't just us ordering the new D2C product for our mocktail cart at home, like what does that now mean? Mm-hmm. What do the products need to be like to actually be supporting these different types of social experiences? Right. So I think this product was designed for those. So I don't want to say the timing of the pandemic worked well for us because the pandemic was horrible, but I think that we had always wanted to be a social beverage. Yeah. So when the pandemic happened, it was kind of like, do we need to change our branding? Yeah. Like, I just like, we're talking about like going out and partying and stuff, and like you're not allowed to leave your house, and so it was just a little bit interesting in that way. But I think it's a great time for us. And totally, it's been the right amount of time.
It's such a timely product. That's how it's you hit the nail on the head with everything. I mean, people are so sober curious. It's trending more and more. Mental health conscious.
It's finally becoming a positive. I mean, people are opening up, and I think men are more now than ever, which makes me very happy.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm a big advocate for mental health, and men have never been open about it. And I still know people that are afraid to, and it's like, no, you're allowed to be stressed or depressed or upset about something. It's not a big issue.
100%.
Just say it.
It's so funny. He might hate me for saying this, but I feel like it's been the past year that my fiance has really learned to cry, and it's been like so attractive to me. It drives him crazy because it's just like, I'm like, you do you. I'm like, do you need to go cry? And
feel
like,
this.
Stop. And I'm like, but no, I think, it's so exciting because all of those cultural dynamics support what we're trying to do, which is about it being safe to be vulnerable, about it being safe to make the decisions that are best for you, to be safe in a way where you don't feel like you're going to be judged or, have some kind of stigma placed on you because you are talking about what health and wellness looks for you, like for you, which is different for everyone.
It is. And it's their business, not really anyone else's. So you don't have to go out and talk about it. But I like that so much about this product and kind of the mission behind it. It's like, it's your thing. It doesn't have to be like a judgment like, ooh, that person's not drinking anymore or whatever. It's like
totally. And
you're getting it naked.
And I think when I first got started, I was like, I want to make not drinking cool. It was like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I was like, okay, that's like a little aggressive. I think right now we're making it innocuous.
Right, it's innocuous.
And then maybe eventually it'll be cool. But,
I think you're kind of making it cool.
I think you're making it very, very cool.
We love the branding. It is so badass. It is just you're really just making a name for yourself in this space, this new space. I think you're really creating a space, which I just think is like
you're literally
crap,
like
sister.
paving the road as you're walking forward.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It feels like plowing snow.
You're
trudging through it.
Yeah,
exactly. Sludging through the snow.
Well, Becca, thank you so much for coming on the Renaissance Pod. You are such a Renaissance woman. I love that we got to have you on. I have a million things I want to talk to you about off air. Just like my brain is like, oh, I need to connect you to this person and this person.
Yeah,
this like just like
restaurants and bars and.
Well, we have a girl coming on the podcast tomorrow, Shannon Stewart, who's the founder of Heels and Handshakes here, which is a hospitality forward women's community.
Oh, awesome!
And she probably already knows about you, but you guys would be.
Love it.
Simpatico.
Love it.
Well, where can everyone find you? I know you already gave us the website link, but maybe give it again, and Instagram.
Yeah. So I would say that your best place to follow along is Instagram right now. So that's just NKD LDY because we are posting the places that we're showing up in, whether it's events or new retail locations. And so that's really kind of the real-time updates. But you can also follow along at www.drinknakedlady, naked lady without the vowels.com. And that's where you can also purchase our product.
Awesome.
So cool.
Well, we are so excited about it. Excited to have you more in Nashville and see you more in Nashville at our favorite bars. And if you guys see this out, take a picture, tag them, do all the things because this is a brand that just is going to continue to need to get out there.
And I will say one last thing is that we are giving free product to 10 weddings this summer, and it's first come, first serve. We've already had 5 people ask.
Wow.
So, and it only applies to folks in Louisville and Nashville. So if any of your listeners are getting married or going to a wedding, we're happy to provide them a case.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we definitely have some getting married peeps that are listening, so you'll probably get reached out to.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Becca, and
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you guys so much.